Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of BSing Sports. And that is right, guys. It is Wednesday, but first, music was brought to you by Orphan Rivers. Love those guys. They provide great intro music every single week. Here with me, as always, is the most informed human being on the face of the earth, Tim. Tim, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good now. I thought you were going to call me the most handsomest human being in the world.
I wouldn't lie to our listeners or our viewers like that. But before I forget,
welcome to Fantasy Football Weekly.
Yeah. Provided by Razor11 on Twitch. Go ahead and check him out. He's also on TikTok. Very, very famous dude. So we're here to just discuss, how fantasy football is going. We're pretty much halfway through the season. Coming off a rough week, man. 6 teams on bye. So, and with the plethora of injuries at multiple positions, kind of scrambling around to fill our lineups there. Tim, why don't you go ahead and, break down what's been kind of standing out for you this season?
How running back heavy some teams are to other teams. You know what I mean? Like how Atlanta had such a strong running offense compared to, let's say, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where the running game isn't all there. You know what I mean? Like the fantasy got a lot of messed up with that.
Tampa's running offense consists heavily of screen passes and short throws too. I mean, NFL teams, especially ones with Tom Brady on them, tend to run less running plays because they utilize the short passing game as an extension of the running game. But from a fantasy perspective, what's really caught me is just, how many top tier guys have gotten off to slow starts, and even some of them just kind of have carried that over. I mean, we'll start with the first position, quarterback. Justin Herbert's currently sitting at quarterback 14 on the season and 4-point passing touchdown. And at this point, with the injuries to wide receiver, I don't know that I see that changing at this point in time.
Neither do I. Mike Evans will probably out for another 2 to 3 weeks. Keenan Allen.
Mike Williams.
Huh?
Mike Williams. You said Mike Evans.
I'm sorry. Mike Williams. I'm sorry, guys. And then you got Keenan Allen, whose hamstrings are made out of string cheese, apparently. Who can't?
That's a line from me, baby.
Huh?
I said that's a line from me, baby.
But I think if they come back healthy and able to do what they are known to do, I think he could move up to a wide receiver, a quarterback one area. But without them, he'd staying at 14, might even go lower.
I think just based on pure talent alone, Herbert kind of stays in that high QB2, low QB1 range. I would still start him weekly with tempered expectations in one quarterback leagues. And then obviously in Superflex leagues, you're going to go ahead and start him with confidence on a weekly basis. Tim Hawkins' first question says, I waited to ask this time. But what 3 are you starting standard Yahoo League? 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, 1 flex. So the wide receivers here are Brandon Ayuk, Josh Palmer, Rondell Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. The running backs, I don't know why he put this in order like this. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and Latavius Murray. And then obviously a flex out of those. Okay, so for the running backs, because – that's going to be the easiest. Latavius Murray's out. He's definitely and since this is a standard league, I'm probably going to lean Brian Robinson. Look, his efficiency isn't there, but he still heavily out carries and out opportunities Antonio Gibson. And since it's not PPR, most of Antonio Gibson's opportunities are through the passing game. So if you need a running back there, I'm going Brian Robinson. Tim, do you have a take on running back there?
I think I might go Antonio Gibson only because I know it's not PPR, but it seems like he has a better chance to get a touchdown from screenplays and everything like that they'd run. He can act as a slot receiver, and he's the kick returner, which you get points off of a touchdown for a kick returner, apparently.
Yeah, you do.
So he could break one out, and who knows? It's a big risk. you don't have good running backs in that league, Tim, unfortunately. But for the wide receiver, I'm going to start Brandon Ayuk. What about you, Ryan?
To me, it all depends on Debo Samuel's status. I imagine Debo will be back playing this week. The 49ers coming off of a bye. So for me, it's going to be Josh Palmer's a must start until we hear otherwise about even when Keenan Allen comes back healthy. Who knows how healthy he's really going to be. So Josh Palmer in all formats is a must start until further notice. And then for me, it's really between Curtis Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I'm not a big Rondell Moore guy. If you've noticed a trend, smaller guys like Rondell Moore tend not to have great success. And I think he's about 5'8", 175 pounds. He's a little too gadgety for me, so I don't think that he's reliable on a week-to-week basis. I mean, you'd have to be super desperate to start him. And to me, looking at the options at wide receiver, you're not super desperate here. I'd probably go Curtis Samuel. I would flex either Curtis Samuel or Antonio Gibson. I could see Ayuk. I just think Josh Palmer's the must start at wide receiver here, even when Keenan Allen comes back.
Yeah, it was.
You're having some doggy issues over there, buddy. You can beat yourself. I'll take it over here for a little bit. So, but anyway, let's do something a little different here. I know we save our start sit-ems for the end, but I'll go ahead with my startums. Let me go ahead and share my screen because I didn't do that beforehand. I'm such a genius, I know. Here we go. So, Tim, you're going to have to take over. I'm on the comments. I'm zoomed into the screen a little bit. So, for those of you watching starts for it is week 10, right? I think it is week 10. Awesome, Tim. Thanks for taking over the comments. You disappeared. So my start for this week at quarterback's Jacoby Brissett. And Jacoby Brissett should be started in, he should be started in all super flex leagues. He could be taken as a cheap flyer in DFS for those of you that play. And he's a sneaky one quarterback league start. And I say that because the Dolphins surrender the most points to quarterbacks for fantasy football. And the Browns offense is coming off of a bye, and this should be a shootout. Now, Nick Chubb's obviously going to get his. They are a run-first team. But when Jacoby Brissett has needed to throw the football this year, he's looked pretty good. I think he was quarterback 16 going into his bye. So for him to have a quarterback 1 week is not completely out of the realm of possibility. And then for running back, it's Cordero Patterson. You might be able to flex Tyler Algier depending on how your team is set up, what running backs you have, who you have on bye, what your injuries look like. So really it could be all Falcons running backs, especially after the week Tyler Algier did have. But Cordero Patterson had 2 touchdowns in his return, and the Panthers are the 3rd worst team against running backs for fantasy purposes. And this is a game that we just saw 2 weeks ago where both teams easily scored into the 30s. Do I see that again happening on Thursday night with the short week? No, I do not. But Cordero Patterson is obviously the lead back when he's there. Tyler Algier gets enough work to stay fantasy relevant. Wide receivers, I know this is going to be a little weird, but I'm going with the Broncos wide receivers. I know the inconsistencies that Russell Wilson's had this year at quarterback have kind of downed the Broncos wide receivers a little bit, but Jerry Jeudy was coming on the last couple of weeks before the bye, and Cortland Sutton still sees his fair share of targets there. And the Titans allow the 3rd most points to receivers from a fantasy perspective. And like I said, the Broncos are coming off a bye. So I expect their offense to be in rhythm this week. I expect them to have 2 weeks prepare for this game. They're healthy. They should be good to go. I wholeheartedly expect both receivers to be in the wide receiver 2 discussion. Tight end for me, Cade Otton. I never actually thought I'd be up here saying this, to be honest with you. Brady's actually developing chemistry with a tight end here. And this, we touch on it every week on this show, the tight end landscape for fantasy this year has just been absolutely abysmal. I read a stat the other day that over 40 tight ends have had a tight end 1 week this year. That's insane halfway through the season. So 40 different tight ends have finished in the top 12 at any given week. That's nuts. So with him developing Brady's trust, obviously catching that game-winning touchdown against the Rams last week, and the Seahawks being the worst team against tight ends probably for the last 3 years, but specifically this year, I would go ahead and say that Cade Otton's got some tight end 1 upside to him. I think that's a pretty good play right there. So those are the startums for the week. I will be keeping receipts of that for sure.
I missed your quarterback. Who was that?
Brissett.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I expect the Browns to get into a shootout, and the Dolphins allow the most fantasy points to quarterbacks.
Tanya Brandt said, "Hello, boys. Hi, Mom."
Hi, Mom.
All right, so my sit-ums, I'm going full screen.
Okay.
So my sit-ums is quarterback one is Dak Prescott. The Packers are the ranked 6 against all quarterbacks through 9 games. The Packers are average ratings for all quarterbacks, and up to the 9 games at a 91 quarterback rating.
Yeah, I think the Packers statistically have the best pass defense in the NFL. I know they did before the Bills game, and I can't imagine that didn't, changed drastically. I mean, the Lions only put up 15 points on them, so.
And let's be real, the way Dak looked, he's still a little bit rusty coming off that injury of his thumb. He's afraid to get hit again. From what I've seen, the 1 week he was there against the Lions. So he coming off a bye, he might have a game plan set, but until I can see Dak playing like he knows how to play for the last end of the year, especially against the Packers, I'm going to sit him who ranked 6, and like you said, was ranked first until the Bills game. So I'm going to sit him.
It's a bad matchup for Dak Prescott too, not just because of how the Packers are statistically from like an in real life perspective, first against the pass and defense, but in real life they're 27th against the run. So I expect Zeke, who was limited at practice today, he should play this week, and Tony Pollard to both have field days. Like those guys are starts this week for me. I just felt like I needed to address that the Falcons running back should be started on Thursday night, but they should both Cowboys running backs should be started with confidence.
So I saw you mention rookie running back Tyler Algier from the Falcons, so all but Falcons running back. I am gonna sit another rookie running back, Dameon Pierce.
Okay.
The Giants had a bye week last week, and they know the Texans. All they mainly do is run. David Mills is not that good of a quarterback to make big plays in the passing area. So they're going to be prepared for the run, and the Giants are allowing, on average, 111 yards per 9 games, only allowing 4 rushing touchdowns in their 9 games. So Dameon Pierce had a tough matchup coming up, and I think the Giants can hold them down like the Eagles did. The Eagles really didn't. Never mind.
I was about to say, the Eagles really didn't. They just kept him out of the end zone. And to touch on Dameon Pierce, we'll continue with your sit-ins in a minute. I don't know if you saw the picture cycling around after that game, but there was a lot of complaint about PPR formats because Kenneth Gainwell had 3 catches for 38 yards, a touchdown, and Dameon Pierce ran for 139 yards, and Kenneth Gainwell only finished 1.7 points behind him. So to me, I think people complaining about PPR, to me, that's a little weird. I think their beef is more so with the fact that Kenneth Gainwell scored and Dameon Pierce didn't.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so Parker, what's up, Parker? He's definitely a repeat person. Thanks for tuning in this week, Parker. He says, I think at this point in the season, Dameon Pierce is a must start in 10-plus man leagues. I agree. However, this man comes up with the wildest sit-ums of the week. I think this is more so if you're looking, at this, it's more so for like DFS or like if you have better options on your team. Like if I know a dude in one of our leagues, he has Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, and Dameon Pierce. Like at this point, like you can probably sit Dameon Pierce. Now, if you have Dameon Pierce, Najee Harris, and then your next best running back is I don't know. Yeah, Kareem Hunt or Matt Breida. Yeah. Go ahead and start.
Play Dameon Pierce. Yeah, but
this is like when it's not obvious. Like, hey, if I have decisions to make, who should I sit? So, but
exactly.
People complaining about PPR because of because Kenneth Gainwell scored his 9 points. Kenneth Gainwell got 6 points off of a touchdown. That's the way touchdowns work in fantasy football. They'll always rank king over everything, and it sucks for Dameon Pierce. It's 139 yards in the NFL. That's a fantastic game. But you know where that gets you in fantasy? 13.9 points.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I texted you last year about PPR, I think. I think I had Alvin Kamara in one game, and he had like 160 rushing yards and only 16 points. The
You
first
know,
word he said was no touchdown. I'm like, yeah,
I'm,
you're right.
I'm going to actually, you know what? I'm going to call you out here because this is consistent with your character. This dude has Tyreek Hill, and all he does every week is complain how Tyreek Hill gets 200 receiving yards but doesn't score. I mean, it's ridiculous. Tyreek Hill will end up with 30 points, and all he does is complain because he didn't score any touchdowns. This is like when we go to the tables and we play blackjack together, and he gets mad because he gets blackjack because he's betting on lucky ladies. Like, come on now, Tim. Like, the dude scored 30 points. Him not getting in the end zone isn't the reason you're going to lose.
The only league I have Tyreek Hill in, I'm 9-0. So eat it.
Yeah,
But
and then stop complaining. Stop complaining about Tyreek Hill not getting in the end zone. Anyway, moving on. Who's your wide receiver sit for the week?
my wide receiver sit for the week is Wandell Robinson. They have Derek Stingley, who hasn't allowed a single touchdown in 8 games. They also had the Texans are ranked 6th best defense against wide receivers, believe it or not.
Yeah, I pointed that out last week. They have pretty good pass defense.
Yeah, it gets too bad that the run defense is terrible. So Saquon should have a game. That should be one of your starts.
I was looking at the Houston Texans stats against running backs, and I saw that Saquon Barkley was up there. I was like, well, there's no possible way that I would sit Saquon Barkley, so I'm not going to put him in the start. I'm just like, gee, thanks, Captain. People would really tune into this show if I started saying stuff like that.
So my tight end, you're not going to like.
I know, because I have him everywhere. I just read it.
Gerald Everett, yep.
Let me go and make some lineup adjustments.
No, it's funny. So I was scrolling through Sleeper app, and I clicked on your name. I'm like, what tight end does he have?
He's always hating on my team.
I said, oh, Gerald Everett. I'm saying that, bro.
Yeah, that's exactly why he did it. It's getting in my head.
But believe it or not, he is playing a tough 49ers defense, who on the season average only allowing 39.3 yards, 2 tight ends total, 0 touchdowns. They have not scored 1 touchdown yet. So it's tough. Justin Herbert wanted big targets, but it gets too risky. Those linebackers shut down tight ends somehow, some way. They figure it out.
I mean, they see George Kittle in practice every week.
You're right. Exactly. You're right.
You know what? Truthfully, the one league that I do have Gerald Everett in, if I felt confident in Mike Gesicki's role, because he's also Cleveland plays tight ends pretty well too. So if I felt confident in Mike Gesicki's role, then I would switch it out. However, I could see this being a sit when you look at the tight end landscape and the way that everything's gone about with tight ends this year, which is going to be another segment in the show. So we might as well just roll into it. Like, you have to play the matchups at this point, because anybody from the range of Gerald Everett to Dawson Knox to Mike Gesicki to Kyle Pitts to anybody really can finish as a tight end. Cade Otton can have a tight end one week. So you really got to focus on the matchups there and play the matchups. I think situation for tight ends matters more than any other position in fantasy football, specifically because outside of Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, and I'll say Zach Ertz, they're not the number one. They're not the number one receiving option on their team. So for tight ends, it's really all about the matchups, and if you swing and miss, so be it. But I think more often than not, if you play the favorable matchups, defenses that are bad against tight ends, go ahead and start those guys. I think that's the way to go about that.
I definitely agree with that. For people who don't know, Pete is in one of our leagues where me and him traded Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen for Kirk Cousins and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
No, Pete, I am not giving you Tyreek Hill.
Was it Kirk Cousins? I thought you guys traded stacks.
I wanted to stack, but Tua was hurt against you the week I was playing you, and I needed to beat you. So
I'll see you again in the championship in that league. I'm coming. Daddy's going to be.
I don't care.
What's up?
I get paid, so I don't care.
That's fine.
Second place is enough to cover all my leagues.
One of our listeners, Ken Brandt, asks, is Josh Allen playing this week? We were going to get into that anyway. So the report out on Josh Allen, I text everybody this morning, is that he had a sprained UCL with a very slight tear. Sean McDermott had his regularly scheduled interview at noon today. He came out and said that Allen is day-to-day, but he would not practice today. I have had this injury before as a pitcher. Now there are varying degrees of sprains, so no two sprains are equal to each other.
Yeah.
But it's not a world-ending injury. It's an injury that he can play through. I got it about 2/3 of the way through my summer when I was 16 years old. I ended up pitching the rest of the summer. There was no innings shortage. I didn't have a velocity dip or anything, and then I just went and got it looked at the end of the summer and figured out there. But it's one of those injuries you notice when you throw, but it's not unbearable. You can continue to play through it. So if he's playing, I would fire Josh Allen up with confidence as a QB1 this week in all fantasy formats. And if he's not playing, well, I hope you're like me and hedged your bet a little bit and went out and spent some fab on Case Keenum, because that's going to be a necessity now. I wouldn't do it if you're not a Josh Allen owner, because you're going to end up spending fab on a guy that might have one start or might not even play at all. But yeah, I would. If you're a Josh Allen owner, I would probably go out and spend a few dimes on Case Keenum just to protect your investment, if you will.
Let's answer a Parker question real quick.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. So Parker says, thank you for tuning in against Parker. Last couple weeks, guys, the real MVP right here. This guy in my league dropped Zeke for Terrace Marshall. Should I pick Zeke up for Herbert, Raymond, Hines, or should I not pick him up? Raymond.
Raymond Stevenson, maybe.
Khalif Raymond, the wide receiver for Detroit, because if that's who you're talking about, then yeah, I would definitely drop Khalif Raymond for Zeke. Here's the fact of the matter is that Zeke is going to get the majority of the carries in. Yeah, he says Khalif Raymond. Zeke's still going to get the majority of the carries in Dallas. I don't see why he wouldn't. Khalil Herbert's obviously coming into his own. You could even drop Hines, at a certain point. Like, I don't think that the Bills are dead set on having anybody carry any sort of workload as a running back. And I know that it seems like they've tried their hardest with the J.D. McKissick scenario in the offseason and drafting James Cook and trading for Naheem Hines. Ultimately, Josh Allen is not a dude that, when it is not schemed, is going to check the ball down to a running back. He's just going to take off and run himself. So you could drop Raymond or Hines, either one for Zeke. I think that Zeke provides much more value than either one of those two.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ryan. I thought you meant Ramon Stevenson, so I would have picked Hines over him. So if it's Khalif, I think I would drop Khalif over Hines. Could there is a by chance Hines does pick up some work from Bills? So, but Zeke will get most of the carries, like Ryan said.
Yeah, and he's got a fairly easy schedule coming up in the next few weeks, if I remember right. Speaking of running backs, so I mean, what's going on with Najee Harris, and what's the deal? Like, how do you view Najee Harris being a dynasty player? What do you think his outlook is rest of season, and then the seasons to come?
Well, so at the beginning, like preseason, apparently he had a foot injury that was bothering him, and they put a steel plate in or something in his cleat that was helping him a little bit. And I think that was a bad idea because that hurt him overall. He's not as explosive. He's losing reps to his backup. He was a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know.
You're talking about Jalen Warren.
Yeah, is he a backup? A rookie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's a rookie at Oklahoma State, I think.
Yeah, and he looks more explosive than Najee right now. So, as a fantasy, not owner, but as like a fantasy, if I had to go buy a running back, I want to spend a first on him, maybe a 25 first, maybe if that. But it was probably like a 23 second and a 24 second, something like that. I ain't buying him in any of my leagues. I try to sell him, to be honest. Get what you can for him.
So you think Najee Harris is a full-on sell? You don't think that there's any chance he bounces back in the future?
I don't. I think Warren. What was his name again? Warren or Warden?
Jalen Warren.
I think he's gonna take over most of the stats. The way he looks so much more explosive than Najee.
I think it's a bit of a confidence issue with Najee Harris. So yeah, if he still gets look, he's been bad in real life, but from a fantasy outlook to this point, I know that there's a report out that he's going to cede some snaps and some touches to Jalen Warren, but I think that he ends up bouncing back. I don't think it's this year. Look, this is a guy that has some really good talent as a running back. I just don't think that it's in the cards this year. I think the Steelers are too shot. There's a rookie quarterback in there. The offensive line play is so bad. Everything is just kind of falling around Najee. I just don't think it's the best scenario for him to thrive. However, I would monitor the start to his next season. That's going to say a lot. Now, Najee is probably still a flex play at this point, especially with all the bye weeks coming up and the injuries that there are at running back, because he does have enough of a fantasy floor that he gets the work. He catches passes out of the backfield, and he's gotten 12 to 15 carries every game. So I think that he's still a viable asset in fantasy, but from a long-term outlook, in real life, he just looks so bad. Us Dynasty players should be a little worried, because this does reek of Trent Richardson vibes. I said that to a bunch of people over the last few weeks that Trent Richardson, I don't know if you remember him, he was the number 3 overall pick or something like that years ago for the Cleveland Browns, and he was just absolutely horrendous. He ended up getting traded to the Colts. He was bad there too. He was arguably the 101 and even Superflex drafts, and it just did not work out for him. So it kind of reeks of those vibes, where all the talent in the world, and then he gets put in a bad situation and just kills his vibes. That Najee is already a little older anyway. I think he's going to be turning 25 here in his second season pretty shortly. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure going down the road. I would say right now that he's probably – I don't want to say that he's a sell, because there is the potential that he bounces back and he still gets a fair amount of workload, but it's something to closely monitor. I definitely wouldn't pay a first for him. I paid a 23-second and a 24-second for him. That is the absolute highest I would go. If you can get him for a 23-second, then that's probably a fair price at this point. But Najee's got a long road back. Am I selling? No, I just bought him. I wouldn't sell him. I only bought one share of him just because to hedge my bet in case I'm wrong. But this does kind of smell like Trent Richardson a little bit. So.
Yeah, I bought Javante, so I know the feeling.
What are you doing with Jerry Jeudy?
Like you said earlier, that you're stoning all Broncos receivers. He had been better in the last 2 weeks, and he had a bye week. Maybe Russell Wilson and him and Carlos Sutton finally had a connection build. So I would either try to sell high on like a Broncos fan, or either keep it and wait.
Krogan out like that.
Or keep and wait, man. See what he can do. With big bye weeks coming up and everything, he's a decent flex, in my opinion.
To me, Judy's a hold, but I almost want to say that he's a buy. I think that when you look at a lot of receivers in the NFL and the way that their career arcs have, unfolded, the third year for the NFL receiver is kind of where it's at. A lot of them tend to break out in their third year. And I'm not saying Judy's breaking out. He had a really slow start to the year, but not all that was on him. It just looks like now that it's starting to round into shape and come into form, and he looks good himself. Like if you watch him play football, I think there's nothing wrong with Jerry Jeudy. The drops have definitely been an issue over his first, 2 years and some change, but I think that he's kind of limited those this year as well. So I think that he's starting to come into his own, and you might want to look at buying him if you're a contender who desperately needs, wide receiver 3 or a weekly flex play. Maybe pay that late 23 first for Jerry Jeudy or something like that. I would probably do that if I was in that scenario. Would you?
Yeah, definitely. Now, if anyone in my leagues is selling Jerry Jeudy, let me know. I might buy.
I think the only person in our league that has Jerry Jeudy is Krogan, and you're going to have to pay 6 firsts and your firstborn child for him. So
I got no first anyway. I'm 9-0 with no first, so I got to win now, basically.
I can't wait to beat you in the semifinals so you don't get paid because you just sat here bragging about how you're getting paid in that league. No, we wouldn't. At this point, we wouldn't face in the semifinals. I think I'm the number 3 seed in that league.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's me, Monty, you.
So Parker asks, would you rather have Judy or Najee in Dynasty? So for me, it's Judy, and here's why. Not only does it have a lot to do with the way that they're looking this year, if you have a wide receiver and a running back who are relatively the same skill set area, same range or same age range, I'm always going to go the wide receiver, and here's why. Wide receivers are much more productive later in their careers than running backs are. 27, 28 years old is kind of like a dead range for running backs. Outside of Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler, there's never been a 28-year-old RB1 on the season ever in fantasy. So that stat alone says like RB1 as in the top running back. There's been a top 12 in the 28-year-old range, but there's never been a number 1. But yeah, that's where running backs kind of fall off. But if you look at 28-year-old wide receivers, you got Devontae Adams, who's 30 this year. He's producing, like we expect Devontae Adams. So Stephon Diggs is 28. Cooper Kupp's 29. Plus, wide receivers tend to get more chances than running backs do. Running backs, after their first contract, if they haven't produced, ended up like in a Melvin Gordon role, where like they kind of spell running backs from time to time, or they travel from team to team, being a handcuff or something like that. So wide receivers just tend to get a little bit more chances, and they have a better odds of breaking out toward the end of their career. So for me, if it's around the same skill gap and same age, I'm always going to take the wide receiver. For example, we had a trade in one of our leagues go down. It was Kenneth Walker for Chris Olave. In a vacuum, it's Chris Olave for me very easily. Mm-hmm. I know that Kenneth Walker's probably going to score more points in the prime of his season, but Chris Olave is probably going to have the longer career. That's what I would bet on. Yeah,
Brian, you took the words right out of my mouth. I would rather have Judy over Najee. Wide receivers are especially in PPR, points per reception. The wide receivers have way more opportunities than running backs have for receptions. I guess I'm going with Judy every day. John Ferris over here. Good.
John Ferris asks, we'll ask John's question real quick and then touch on Parker's comment. Yep. John says, is JT worth keeping in Dynasty? He's referencing Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts. Do you think he bounces back next year?
John, if you're selling Jonathan Taylor, you better hop in my DMs.
I knew you were going to say that. Just get to whether
yes, I think he bounces back. I think that the Colts in general, we're getting new coaches and everything. I think he might have at the end of the year a couple of bounce back games, but next year I think he'd be back to the same old self with a new coach, with probably a new offensive line, new quarterback. I think he does bounce back pretty well too, right?
Yeah, he's definitely a hold, as much as I would like to buy him at this point in time, because look around at the situation. Is it going to get any worse than what it is right now for Jonathan Taylor? And the answer is very unlikely. Sam Ehlinger is a horrible quarterback. He's not an NFL-ready quarterback. The offensive line is not doing what we thought the Colts offensive line is doing. They just fired their head coach and hired somebody who does not have NFL or college coaching experience, so we have the rest of the season to see how that plays out. And on top of that, JT's been dealing with a nagging ankle injury. So at this point in time, it really can't get any worse for JT. It can really only go up. So he's definitely worth a hold. If you really aren't that confident, then yeah, I guess sell him. But to me, this is going to sound weird. JT is still a top 3 dynasty running back. The other one is Breece Hall, and the other one arguably is still in college in Bijan Robinson. But we'll talk more about the rookies in the offseason before the rookie drafts and whatnot. But yeah, so JT, definitely keep him in dynasty. Parker says, I've never played dynasty before, but seems fun. Holy crap. Do you think next year I should join a new dynasty draft or try to find an orphan team? I think that all depends on what you're looking for.
Aren't you making a new Dynasty team, Ryan?
Yeah, I might make a new
Like,
Dynasty
league?
team. We'll see how much interest it gains, but if I open it up, I'll post it on all of our social media feeds, and it'll be on our Twitter, Facebook,
Let me know.
all over
I'll
the
be down.
place. Yeah, so if I open up a new one, but yeah, if you want to look for the orphan team, a lot of orphan teams, though, they're kind of bad teams where the owners are leaving because they screwed themselves and the teams aren't in great spots. So for me, if you're confident in the orphan team that it's more of a win now team, I would say you could probably take an orphan team, but I would really just start from scratch. Give yourself a chance to do some research, get a fresh beginning to a new team. That'd be my advice for that for new Dynasty players. I wouldn't take any orphan teams if you haven't done it yet.
Man, I took an orphan team in Ty's league, and don't ask me how.
I don't know how that team is 7. This is the worst 7-2 team I've ever seen in my whole life.
Don't ask me how, but I'm 7-2, and I took an orphan team. I traded. I didn't. I had one first round pick, and I traded him away for Elijah Mitchell. I think with Zeke. Then Elijah Mitchell goes down. Then I trade Elijah Mitchell for Jeff Wilson. CMC goes to the 49ers. Like, somehow, some way, and my other two running backs are Jamal Williams and Kareem Hunt. I traded Amari Cooper away for Ramon Stevenson. I'm making big trades to try to help me out.
That DeAndre Swift injury has really helped you out in that league, is what it is.
Yes.
I mean, Jamal Williams has produced like crazy. We'll touch on him in a second, though. Parker asks, how many leagues are y'all in? 7? All of them Dynasty?
I'm in a 6
redraft
Dynasty
league
and 1 keeper league.
Yeah, I'm in 1 redraft league as well. But I mean, I did that because I knew the dude running the league. He's a great dude. And 1 redraft is plenty for me. But no, I'm a Dynasty guy. I think there's pros and cons to each side of it, right? Dynasty, you have to be invested. Like, you can't just you can't disappear all off season, because that is the season for Dynasty players, dealing with the rookies, following the news of players, this player gets traded to this team. It's not just for 1 year. How, what is the outlook of that person's career at this point in time? And Parker asks, are keeper and Dynasty different? Tim, I'll let you touch on keeper since you have a keeper league. You're probably a little bit more dressed up on it than me.
Yeah, keeper league, the Dynasties are a little bit different. You still have picks to trade and everything like that. But in Dynasty, like Ryan said, you got to be more invested all year long. You got to know it's the same team over and over and over again on your own team. You trade for the players you want in Dynasty. Keeper league, you still have picks and everything to trade, but it's like a redraft. You get to keep three players. So let's say I took Austin Eckler in the first round. If I want to keep him, I can, but he'd still be my first round pick for next year. But let's say, for instance, I drafted Deshaun Watson in the 17th round in the keeper league, and I'm going to keep him next year, so he'd be my 15th round pick. He moves up every 2 rounds. It really depends on how your commissioner has it, but it's like you redraft every year, but you get to keep 3 or 4 players, 2 or 3 players. It's weird. I don't recommend keeper league. If you're gonna do a league for 1 year, I definitely recommend a redraft more than anything.
Yeah. So for me, what turns me off from keeper leagues is that the rules are just so weird in a lot of keeper leagues. Like you said, you drafted. Yeah. So it is kind of like a mix of redraft and Dynasty.
Yes.
So you said you drafted Deshaun Watson in the 17th round, but if you keep him, he's your 15th round pick. Like, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. Like, it should be the round that you drafted the guy in, but they're different commissioners. I've seen people, they're keepers. They move up 1 round every year. And then there's certain leagues where you can only keep dudes for X amount of years, whatever it sets to be the commissioner. There's just too many weird rules. Like, I don't know that I would, enjoy a keeper league myself, but for some people, they enjoy those different challenges that keeper leagues provide. So, and in Dynasty, you have a rookie draft, which 99% of leagues will take place after the NFL draft. I have heard of people doing a rookie draft before the NFL draft, which is weird.
That's tough.
Yeah, I know, because a lot of people base their, not necessarily me personally, like if I'm close on two guys, I'll pick the guy in the better landing spot. But for me, landing spot doesn't matter. We'll touch more on dynasty rookies as the NFL draft approaches and whatnot, and the way to take that approach. So, but yeah, so dynasty, you have to be invested year round because offseason news matters so much. You know, like last year, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, and Travis Etienne getting hurt for one season. In redraft, you just know not to draft those guys. It's simple. I just won't have them on my team. But in dynasty, they're good stashes because it's not about what they're going to do in 2022. Or 2021. It's what can they do in 2022, 2023, 2024. They're going to be on your team forever. And the way that I set my leagues up, 12-man leagues, and we all have we start out with 3 rounds of draft picks for the rookie draft. So you can trade those draft picks at any point in time. Everybody values them differently. So Tim's much more of a win now person. I do, love my draft picks.
I'm in a couple rebuilds.
You're in a couple rebuilds because your teams were terrible. That's the thing about Dynasty, right? So if I'm 0-9 in Dynasty, right? If I'm 0-9 in redraft, it's like, why am I even playing this, right? Like, I'm not going to make the playoffs. If I'm 0-9 in Dynasty, it gives me a huge chance to turn my team around. I have a strategy I can build. If I'm 0-9 with Cortland Sutton or Terry McLaurin, me personally, I'm trading them for picks. I'm going to go ahead and just sell those guys. I'm going to rebuild for the future, and I'm going to, move on. It gives me something to play for. I don't have to just sit around on my hands all day.
Yeah, I think in Drunk Trader, like, I really like my team coming out the draft, and then I traded a big trade for Mark Andrews because I wanted him on my team, and I regretted it instantly. I gave up so much, and then I hated my team ever since. So I'm keeping Mark Andrews. Everyone else is for trade, but Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
I want to keep one trade Amari Cooper.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing too, is if you make a big trade like that in Dynasty, you kind of have to hold on to that player for dear life. Like, or, just studs. So I got into it a little bit. One of my leagues, a dude offered me, I think it amounted to 4 firsts and 3 seconds for Jamar Chase. Like, that's what it amounted to. But like 3 of the firsts were in 2025. One of them was in 2024. I think the seconds were in 2023 or something like that. I don't know. It on paper, it was like, damn, this dude offered, the way that he worded it, he's like, so you turned down 4 firsts and 3 seconds for Jamar Chase. I said, no. Look, the goal of fantasy football is to win championships, right? Why in Dynasty would I sell a young asset that's going to be a wide receiver 1 as long as he's healthy for 10 plus years for guys who, one, I don't really know anything about those draft classes yet. Outside of the 23 seconds, we don't really know what's going on with 2024 yet, and we really don't know what's going on with 2025. Second, how am I going to win this championship? Am I going to do it with picks, or am I going to do it with players? Like, to me, that's the point, is to get those young players and keep them. So yes, I did turn down 4 firsts and 3 seconds or whatever it amounted to be. But the point was, I'm not trading Justin Herbert and Josh Allen and Jamar Chase. I'm not going to trade these guys while they're so young and like at the top of their game, because I'm never going to win a championship if I do that. I saw a quote on Reddit. It was, trade all your young studs away for draft picks, draft more young studs, trade them away for draft picks, rinse, repeat, never win a championship. And it's true. If you keep doing that, you'll never win a championship. You can't win with picks. You win with players. While picks have their place and they're nice to have, if you're rebuilding and your squad is old or whatever the case may be, they suck, you need to rebuild. Sure, it has its place, but trading young studs like that for picks, that's weird to me. Like, maybe for players, but I wouldn't do it for picks.
I get that.
So Parker says, I could never do 7 leagues. LOL. I have 2 redrafts, and that's stressful enough. I think I'll do 1 dynasty and 1 redraft next year. And it's whatever works out for you. I mean, I've been playing fantasy football for 10 years now. So I'm kind of, a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more conditioned to it. And for me, it's not as stressful because I've been doing dynasty for some time now. So it's a little, I know what I'm looking for in my teams. I have different strategies. It's fun to me. But, if it's not something that you can handle, I know dudes in 20 plus leagues. Like, I mean, it's all the dynasty nerds guys and whatnot, but that's what they do for a living. They play dynasty fantasy football.
Yeah, I think last year I was in like 2 or 3, and I really enjoyed it. And then I upgraded this year to 7 or 6, and if you make a new one, I'd be 7 because I like playing. I enjoy it. So when no one knows, when we were younger, we used to go gambling all the time. Like I mean, all the time.
Every day
This
when
like
I was coming home off of leave, every day we were there sun up to sundown.
and fantasy football really helped me out of it. Yeah, I'm spending money here and there for it, but it's not as much as what I would have done at blackjack table, to be honest. So this is like a way out of me gambling. You know what I'm
You,
saying?
you could have combined every single buy-in fee that I've had for every league this year, and it would have been about half as much as I walked into a casino with on the daily. Like I easily would have spent more money on a blackjack table if I was losing, if I was like you. But now if we were like me, where I was winning all the time, like we wasn't spending. No, just kidding. But no, so for me, I really got into Parker asked, what's the longest dynasty league either of y'all have been in? I was in one like years ago, and it went like 3 or 4 years, but we had an unfortunate accident. We had to end the league. So, and I'll leave it at that. But I really started heavily investing into fantasy football and dynasty again this year because to get a little bit more on the personal side, I was dealing with some issues. I separated from the military about a year ago. I fell into a really, bad mental state. It was a tough transition. We'll leave it at that. We won't get too sappy. It was a tough transition for me. And I used Dynasty as a way out of it. I was listening to a bunch of podcasts before I'd go to sleep at night. I was, doing research on players, and it was just my way out of that. It helped me kind of, keep afloat. I even got a puppy, named him Doc, beautiful dog. But yeah, no. So fantasy football was kind of my escape from what I had going on. Same as Tim, he uses it as a crutch so he doesn't go gambling all the time. So, but yeah, to me, it's fun. Like $50 for a league. Like I would like to do, probably one of those dynasty leagues where it's like, $500 maybe when I'm a millionaire, and that. But for me, like $50, maybe $100 for a league, and you get a group of dudes that's not super serious about it, but they take it seriously. You can all have fun, have a good time. Fantasy football, it's out here saving lives. Good words.
Yeah, you definitely gotta have the right people out in mind in fantasy, because we're in a couple of them where people don't trade. And then we're also in another couple where people begging to trade. It's having stupid trades, make everyone laugh and crap like that. That's what fantasy football should be about. Make everyone laugh, have fun. Like for instance, in one of my rebuild leagues, me and this dude are playing maybe 4 starters out of everyone.
Nah, you guys are gonna change your lineup before tomorrow night. Because there's a dude between you in the standings, and the points for and points against matters to him.
Fine. Lebo, how could you?
Yeah. But so don't forget to change your lineup before tomorrow night. I'll text him tonight too. Parker says I got offered Mike Williams for D Hop. Now in redraft, it's D Hop all the way. In Dynasty, I would probably slightly reconsider. I mean, Mike Williams.
You gotta add. Yeah, you gotta add like a second in there for D Hop or something like that.
He said, "I get some goofy trades." That is a goofy trade. In redraft, I would laugh at that trade the whole time I was hitting deny.
We get goofy trades all the time, man. Especially from my friend Krogan.
We had dudes trade fab in our leagues. They traded like $50 each of their own fab. Or one of our dudes in the league that we're in, he like made up this thing where we all traded our 25 fourths to one another, the entire league. And it's just funny stuff like that. That trade ended up not going through. I probably would have accepted it in all honesty, but
I think it was I think the cousin of the commissioner declined it.
No, somebody declined it. I was about to say, damn, that trade disappeared so fast. I don't get it, dude. It's
someone declined it off the bat.
It's 25 fourth, man. Who cares?
Exactly.
I'll care about it in 2025. Give me, 2 years. I'll try and get that pick back. But yeah, no. So you can have fun with fantasy football. It doesn't have to be super serious all the time. It really is all who you play with too. We branched out into some random leagues, and those are tough. We had a bit of a bad league last year that we all left in the offseason because the commissioner was a little corrupt and definitely suspect. So
we made good friends out of it, and now we're in other leagues.
That's a good point. Tim Hawkins in the comments. Yeah, we even did an entire Dynasty draft where the whole thing was auto-drafted. Every single team auto-drafted their team. I got stuck with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Damn it. Who would want that?
I got stuck with Justin Herbert and old-time running backs that I still use now.
Dude, I ended up coming out with the best 0 running back strategy ever. And then I ended up making a trade for Jamar Chase. I traded, I know it was my 23 and 24 first. I traded some players in there as well. But I ended up with Devin Singletary and Dawson Knox too. So I made my team name the Buffalo Bills. That was good. The trades after that were unbelievable. Everybody just hated their team.
I liked my team. I wanted like a quarterback wide receiver stack, so I wanted to get Keenan Allen, and then he ended up not playing. So
yeah, but we're kind of short on time here. We did start a little late this week. My apologies. We had some things going on. It was not technical difficulties, just had some issues. So Tim, do you have any remarks before we close out of here?
If you have players playing in the Thursday night football game, do not flex them.
Oh yeah, get your Thursday night players out of your flex. That doesn't mean bench them. That means move them to the positions in which they actually play and flex the people that play on Sunday. That's a good call, Tim. So that being said, we're going to sign out here at BSing Sports. Go ahead and like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're so close to 100 subscribers, so please tell your friends about us. Parker, you might as well go ahead and tell the people in your fantasy league that we do this every Wednesday at 6:30. Have them tune in. Maybe we can get some friendly debate going on in here. And we're also on TikTok. We're on TikTok, BSing Sports Podcast, part of the BSing Network. So go ahead and just follow us on social media. We're trying to create some awesome content for you guys, fantasy content included, and just regular sports. Every Tuesday and Friday, we have a football show as well. So that being said, here at BSing Sports, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good night, guys.